First, the needles for the outline. I'm using a round liner size 5 or sometimes 7, and for shading, the best choice is a curved magnum size 9 or even 11. Stay with me until the end, because I'll share important tips and techniques that will definitely help you if you want to become a tattoo artist. For the main outline, I usually go with an RL size 5 or sometimes 7, but there is one important detail. At the beginning, I always start with something lighter. I use an RL3 with a very light grey wash. Because when you work in realism, in portrait tattoos, or in three-dimensional tattoos, you don't want heavy, bold lines. We don't really use strong outlines in realistic work. Instead, we build the tattoo with shading, with gradients, and with soft contrasts, so the first lines should be very thin and very light. Just enough to keep the stencil in place, and just enough to give me a guide for the shapes. Think of it like a sketch on paper, soft lines that help me know where everything goes, but not something that dominates the tattoo. Later, after I finish shading and blending, I can come back with a bigger RL, size 5 or 7, to sharpen only the areas that need more definition. That way, the rose still looks clean, but it keeps that soft and realistic portrait and 3D feeling, without looking like a cartoon or a flat drawing. Let's see. I'll show you the grey wash that I made. Cup 1, just a single drop of black. Cup 2, 3 drops of black, then filled with solution. Cup 3, 5 drops of black with solution. Cup 4, full black, and cup 5, left as pure solution or very, very light grey wash if needed. Remember, each cup is like a step on a staircase, the lightest cup for the outer parts of the petals, the darker ones for the inner parts, so the rose will look natural, soft, and three-dimensional. Mix carefully, and test on fake skin if needed, to make sure the gradients are smooth and balanced. Now, let's start working on the tattoo. I always begin inside the petals, right where the darkest areas are. Remember, always start with the dark parts. Here I'm using RM, and the 3-drop grey wash we prepared in our cups. But it's very important to know this. You can start directly with the darkest cup, but if you want your rose to look softer, more natural, and realistic, you should start lighter and work layer by layer toward darker shades. Don't try to make all the depth in one pass. Apply several gentle layers, gradually darkening the folds. This keeps the transition smooth and gives a realistic, soft look to the petals. This layer-by-layer approach builds depth, adds volume to the petals, and creates that realistic, three-dimensional effect. Here's how to do it. Keep your hand steady, relax your wrist, and move the machine slowly. Always follow the natural curve of the petal. Apply each pass lightly, then gradually go a bit darker on the same areas. If you press too hard, the grey wash will look heavy and muddy. If you're too light, the depth won't form and the petals will look flat. So balancing your pressure is key. When shading rose petals, one of the most important skills is to follow the natural curves and indentations of the petals. Some key techniques. Always move your machine in the direction of the natural lines and curves of the petal. Don't try to shade in straight, linear strokes. Look closely at how the petal bends, where it curves in or out, and follow that flow with your hand. By moving along the curve, the shading naturally enhances the three-dimensional form of the petal, making it look soft, realistic, and alive. Imagine your machine is painting along the natural path, not scratching across it. Small or gentle passes along the curve give a soft gradient. Repeating these passes, layer by layer, builds depth without harsh edges. In areas where the petal naturally dips or folds, use a slightly darker grey wash. This adds depth and makes the surface appear more three-dimensional. Notice the small indentations or the natural valleys in the petal structure. Follow those and apply your shading carefully, layer by layer, to enhance the natural form. On the outer edges of the petals, blend the shading gently. Take your time, don't rush. Soft, gradual passes prevent harsh lines and make the petals look natural and smooth. Pay attention to the tips and borders where the light would naturally hit. Gently fading the shading gives a realistic, soft transition that enhances the three-dimensional form of the rose. Remember, the softer your edges, the more natural the petals appear. Layering soft passes along the edges helps integrate them with the rest of the shading. This technique is essential for realistic and lively roses. Don't try to create depth in a single pass. Instead, build your shading gradually, one soft layer at a time. Always respect the natural form and curves of the petals. Each layer should follow the direction of the petal surface. Gradually darken areas where needed, while keeping the transition smooth. Layering helps control both contrast and volume, and makes the petals appear realistic, soft, and alive. It's a fundamental technique for achieving depth and realism in rose tattooing. Do you prefer soft shading or deep shading? Comment below, and don't forget to like. By following these tips, your petal shading will look soft, realistic, and alive. Nowhere should there be harsh lines or borders. Transitions need to be soft and smooth. This is exactly what matters in realism and three-dimensional tattoo work. Another important point in this design: some petal edges are intentionally darker. I don't go straight to full black there. First, I build the base with lighter cups, then I emphasize only the edges with darker shading. This increases the contrast between the center and the edge, and makes the whole rose look more alive, natural, and appealing. Remember, working layer by layer is not just a technique. It's a full process for creating depth and contrast. If done correctly, your rose will never look flat or cartoonish. Instead, it will be full of dimension, lively, and realistic. You made it this far. Give this tutorial a like, and leave a comment below. Tell me, which part of shading petals do you struggle with the most? The pressure, the curves, or the layering? I want to hear from you. And make sure to subscribe. Let's go more advanced techniques for realistic rose tattoos. Now, after shading the darker inner parts, it's time to move toward the edges of the petals. Use a lighter gray wash and gently blend it toward the tips. This creates smooth transitions from dark to light and gives the petals a soft, natural look. Pay attention to the curves of each petal, follow the natural lines, and blend gradually. This is how you create highlights that make the rose appear more three-dimensional, lively, and realistic. Keep your hand steady, move slowly, and always think about the form of the petal, where light would naturally hit and where shadows should remain. Pay close attention to the edges and curves. Make sure everything flows naturally and that the petals maintain their realistic, soft appearance. Go slowly and build the depth gradually, adding subtle layers wherever necessary. Remember, less is often more in realistic tattooing. You want soft, natural gradients, not heavy, blocky shading. Now, after you've added shadows and highlights, take a step back and look at the rose as a whole. Check for any harsh lines or areas where the transitions aren't smooth. Use a very light gray wash to gently blend any rough spots. We move to the final details. Take a careful look at the rose, check the shadows and highlights, and see where the contrast could be stronger or smoother. Use a slightly darker gray wash on areas that need more depth, and a very light touch on places that need softening. Always follow the natural curves of the petals. This is also the moment to fix any small lines or subtle spots that don't look balanced. Work slowly and layer carefully, so the petals feel alive and soft. Remember, the goal is realism. Every shadow, every highlight, should enhance the natural form of the rose. Don't rush, take your time, and make sure each petal has the right depth and balance. Now that you've seen the main process, let's go over some extra shading techniques. These methods will help you add variety, depth, and realism to your tattoos. Each technique has its own use, so try them and see which one fits your style best. Techniques. Use short, light strokes, moving outward like feathers. This creates a smooth transition from dark to light. Keep your wrist relaxed and don't push too hard. Feathering helps the shading look soft and natural. Feathering works best on petals, especially near curved edges. It gives a flowing, realistic effect. Stippling is perfect for soft gradients and for creating natural textures in flowers. Whip shading on large petals. When shading the larger, outer petals, use whip shading to create smooth gradients. Pull the needle in a quick, whipping motion, starting close and lifting gradually as you move outward. This technique makes the shading fade naturally, from dark bases to lighter edges. It's perfect for covering wide areas without overworking the skin. Whip shading gives outer petals a soft, airbrushed effect, which makes the rose look smooth and three-dimensional. Negative space highlights don't fill every part of the petal with shading. Leave some areas untouched to act as natural highlights. These empty spaces catch the eye and make the rose look shiny and dimensional. Negative space is one of the best tools to balance dark shadows and create contrast. Use negative space on the tips of petals or along edges where light would naturally hit. Depth in the folds of petals. Darken the folds and deeper areas of the petals to create dimension. This contrast makes the rose look more realistic and three-dimensional. Softening the edges. Always soften the outer edges of shading to blend them into the skin. Avoid leaving harsh borders that break the flow of the tattoo. By the way, I have a question for you. What brand of needles do you usually use for tattooing? And do you think they work well for you? It would be great if we all share our experiences so everyone can learn which brands are the best. So please, make sure to write your opinion in the comments. If you want to learn more about realism portrait shading, check out my previous video. Don't forget like. Good luck!